So we have seen two things. Just waiting for the others to come. Well, I think we can start out with the romantic. We have completed the Augustan age, and then we had also completed the romantic age, and now it's time to go for the. We had completed the romantic age, right? Yes. So now it's time for the Victorian age, as such. So let's just talk about the Victorian age. Fine. So during this time, uh, the Queen Victoria was ruling, and this is the only time where Queen Victoria was, alive, and still they called it the age of Victoria. Okay, so it's pretty much it tells what kind of person she was. She must have been influential. So that is why this is called the Victorian age. So it's 1837 to 1901. This is the time when Queen Victoria was ruling the country. And when she was alive itself, they were calling it Victorian age. So that one you should see. Okay, now romantic age, they were worried about like the French Revolution and stuff. Um, you know, they were bothered about French Revolution. What was French Revolution all about? So we have already seen how they had gone. They had taken part in the French Revolution, and all that we have seen, right? So now what happens is they were kind of uh, not clear what was to happen. Napoleon was there. This was a new age. Now slowly, science was improving. Machines were being built, and slowly the people from the village started moving to the cities, and things were certainly changing quickly. Okay, so that is when all these writers come in, and one main influence was Charles Darwin. He published Origin of Species. This changed everything for everybody, because as you can see, when Charles Darwin came out, before that the church was the supreme power, right? Whatever they said, they would listen. But now, the origin of species, this book said, no, creation might be wrong. We started, we started evolving, and God creating in 6 days is not possible. So, instead of faith, instead of faith, reason had come in. People started questioning things. So that's, and one of the most important things is the origin of species, which is like the foundational book for evolutionists, right? The creationists are against it, but evolutionists said we started off from a smaller organisms, we started building it, and we'll keep going, and all these things, right? So the younger theory was proven wrong by this. So this one, as I mentioned, religion was questioned. People were not bothered. Okay, and as I already mentioned, people started moving from the villages to the cities, and now industries are grown. Now, here is one tip. Um, this is the time, because this is industrialization, right? This was the time where everyone went to work, and this was when they started having this rules, and we still follow them. 9 to 5 work, proper time. Okay, and we have a timetable. After 1 hour break, all these kinds of uniforms, these things came from the industrial revolution. So industry started and things happened. That same formula has been used till this day. Okay, and during this time we could see evolution of children novel. Before this, it was primarily written only for adult novels, and there were hardly any kind of you know uh, works for children. And even if they wrote for children, it was not deemed as something great and stuff. They thought it was you know just for children, and they didn't take it seriously. But then comes Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. He was a Oxford professor, and his real name is different. And when he wrote Alice in Wonderland, this became a mega hit. Okay, so it had illustrations and all. This was about the little girl Alice in Oxford. So that's what the story is all about. You might have seen the movie as well. But children's literature started taking shape by this time. And of course, by this time, Dr. Jekyll and Hyde also got published by Alan Stevenson. Um, Al Stevenson is very well known for works like Kidnapped. We will see them separately, but then you just have a notion. Kidnapped and The Treasure Island. These books are like classical tales, classical children novels. So Kidnapped, Treasure Island, everything. All these works are written by Arnold Stevenson, right? So Dr. Jekyll and Dr. Heidi is one of the best works ever. Probably there are many imitations, but this one is good work. So what happens is in Alice in Wonderland, um, it started becoming so good that they started to publish the second one is Through the Looking Glasses. Okay, so Through the Looking Glasses was the next work. And when this work came out, it was a blast. It became great, and you might have seen the movies. It's more of, because Lewis Carroll was a mathematics professor. He used a lot of logics in it, And Harold Bloom, the American critic, said Lewis can be considered one of the best children writer ever. He was against all the popular children novels. Okay, so you get the idea of where this came. And we have already seen, when we are discussing question papers, we had already seen Oxford Woman, right? Uh, it basically introduced Catholics. Those days, Catholics were not very much allowed into this, but this was the time where the Oxford movement wanted people to get in. Okay, so Oxford movement was an important factor there. We have already seen these things. Now you should understand all these things. No, we have seen them. Darwinism came about, origin of species came about, people moved from religion to, they moved from religion to the great reasoning thought, and still the battle wages on. Some are atheists, some are agnostics, and some are believers. So this is a never-ending tale. We will never know, of course. But okay, so that was Oxford movement. Then there was also the aesthetic movement where Oscar Wilde comes into the picture. Where Oscar Wilde was more concerned about art for art's sake. So you can see what Oscar Wilde was all about, right? So we will see Oscar Wilde separately, but just remember, art for art's sake, art for life's sake, all those ideas right here. This is where it started, right? So the first major poet one should see is Alfred Lord Tennyson. I'm sorry for the spelling. Alfred Lord Tennyson, 1809 to 1892. He was a poet laureate. So he was one of the best poets ever. Now, how did he become poet laureate? It's a different story, but we'll just see some kind of background. He was kind of a prodigy, and he used to write a lot of poetry when he was just young. And by his friend Hallam played an important role in his life. So Hallam and helped him publish some works. So the first work was chiefly lyrical. It was about a hundred of poems, and this did not do well. But still, his friend kept on, you know, um, advertising, marketing kind of stuff. But then what happened was, unfortunately, Hallam passed away. This broke his heart. Okay, so and that is when the most endearing work called In Memoriam started coming out. In Memoriam was published in 1833. So chiefly lyrical was 1830, and In Memoriam was 1833. So that sums up a lot, right? When he started writing this, it was for his friend. It was an elegy to Arthur Hallam. This is a beautiful work. So another important thing is Tennyson got engaged to Arthur Hallam's sister Emily 10 years back. He didn't write anything 10 years time. He mourned and mourned a lot. And then you should be aware of a connection here. The connection here is when for others, we have seen Chaucer, right? When we saw Chaucer, you might have noticed Thomas Mallory's work, uh, Author de Mater. Thomas Mallory's work. So, Morte d'Arthur, you might have seen. So, the Arthurian legends and all those tales we might have seen there, right? So, Arthurian legends, it's about King Arthur. We have seen about Lancelot. We have seen the Caliber X, the Sword, and all the stories we have seen. So this was a rewriting in a way of that. The modern other stories came about this time, and you might have read this poem. This is one of my favorite poems. It's about Ulysses. So this is one of the best lines. This is like Ulysses after his 10 years journey. After the Trojan War, he is in the ship and he is lost and he has to fight the gods. Poseidon is having a curse, right? So he has to fight these things and come back to land, and where he comes. Now he's settled. He comes back to his palace in Ithaca. He's with his wife and all. But he's old. But still, he's thinking about another adventure. So that shows like this restless spirit of this age, where they don't want to give up. They want to keep on going and again and again. So one of the lines, best lines, is to strive, to seek, to find, and not to leave. To strive, to seek, to find, and not to leave. Okay, so actually, it's a good life lesson as well. No matter who does things or who doesn't, we should always strive to do something. Right? We have to strive, we have to seek, to find, and never to eat. So that is one thing you should be aware of. Next is spring. Okay, and break. This is a wonderful poem for the lyrical nature of it. For just the lyrical nature of it, this is considered one of the best poems. Okay, so what happens is, because he did these things, no, the government had given him the great lordship as well. He was Alfred Tennyson, and then he was given the lordship as Alfred Lord Tennyson. Okay, so that should cover Tennyson's works. Remember, the poet laureate Chief Lyricals was published, and then his friend died, and he wrote for him in memoriam. And these are all collections, modern other poems, Ulysses, Spring, Break. When you think about Victorian age, you cannot forget Lord Tennyson's great work. Okay, and one more line, you might have come across this line many times. Generations come and generations go, but the earth remains forever. But there is a typical connection between this and the biblical text, in which Ecclesiastes. So there is a connection between these two, where in that thing it says like, men may come and men may go, but the earth remains forever. So there's a bit of a connection there. Next, we will see Robert Browning. Okay, Robert Browning is one of the best poets ever. Why? Because he started out with a different kind of style to write. So he introduced dramatic monologue. So dramatic monologue is where you can see that someone's talking, but who are they talking to? The other person is never really brought into the picture. Just their actions, just the way they move their body, their style. But it's just a monologue. Only one person will keep talking. The other person never gets involved. So that's a dramatic monologue. How did he develop it? Because in the early days, Browning started to write for plays. He tried to write plays, but it didn't work out. But he learned that skill, and he put it into his wonderful poetic collection called Dramatic Lyrics. This has some brilliant works like The Last Duchess. You might have read that in a college. Last Duchess, and there are many other works like that. For example, let me just tell you. Yeah, Porphyria's Lover. That's a wonderful work. In that also, it's like, you know, it's about threatening a girl. It's about a death as well. Then of course Ravi Ben Ezra is about old age and all that things. It's a very philosophical work. Then his most popular work would be Ring and the Books. Ring and the Books is one of the most brilliant works that he had done. But why is Robert Browning more famous? Is because of his dramatic monologue. The way he had expressed these things, it was brilliant work. Okay, so that is called great Robert Browning. So we have seen two authors. One is Alfred Lord Tennyson, and another one was Robert Browning. Okay, so that's a brilliant thing. And next, we can see Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Okay, so today we will cover only the poets, and we will complete it off because many did not attend it. But still, we cannot stop the classes. We have to keep on going, right? So Elizabeth Barrett Browning, from Browning, you can understand she was the wife. She was kind of a sick lady. She was like invalid from a very young age, and Robert Browning fell in love, and they both moved to Portuguese. And she wrote a lot of works, but especially her poems. Okay, so she really loved Robert, and they had a group there because you can see from the last one we can see Shelley. Everyone had met at a certain time. So Browning, Elizabeth R. Browning, she had written a novel called Aurora Lee. Okay, so character from Wordsworth Prelude. It comes from Wordsworth Prelude. This is also about a girl, how she can't make it in the writer's circle and all that. Yes, if I'm not wrong. I hope that is the thing. Yeah. This is also about male dominance. The novel is about male dominance and how she can't do it. But her wonderful poem is Sonnet 43. I think everybody should memorize it. I'm trying to do it. So that poem is, how do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach. It's a beautiful one. If you have time, just go check out that one. So that is Sonnet 43. Main works that you have to remember is that sonnets from Portuguese and also Arabic. So we have seen three poets. That is Alfred Tennyson. Then the next one is Robert Browning, and then Elizabeth Barrett. These are the people that we have seen till now. Then, most importantly, let's just talk about the main guy. That is Matthew Arnold, right? So she studied in one of the most brilliant schools at the time. I've already spoken about Eton School. In this place, Shelley studied as well. Shelley studied in this most famous school, and it was the Eton School. And we know Shelley got kicked out of college as well for becoming an atheist. So he is a great critic at this time. He studied in the rugby school as well. Okay, so Matthew Arnold's dad was a great influence, Thomas Arnold. So he was a great educationalist at the time. So Rugby Chapel headmaster was his father. So it was dedicated in a way to him, and that was Rugby Chapel. Okay, so the Rugby Chapel is a poem written over 20 years after the death of his father. Okay, after 20 years. So this shows Arnold's regard for his father. So it's about his dad, right? So that is Rugby Chapel. Then Dover Beach is about lost faith, how people are losing faith. So actually, he and his wife, uh, probably they went. Yes, he and his wife made the Dover region. They went there, maybe holiday, and that's when he got the idea. And it's more about losing faith. Then the Scholar Gypsy. It's about a 17-year-old Oxford boy who just lives his studies and just goes into a gypsy life, right? So that is Scholar Gypsy. He joined gypsies. Then Tyresis is an elegy for Arnold's friend. So this one comes when Arnold's friend author Hugh Clogg. He's also a famous poet and writer. He has written many autobiographies uh, of many people. Okay, so one of them, I think so. No, not he. Sorry, he was a poet, author, author, author Hugh Clark. Okay, so his spelling is author Hugh Clark. So this was the elegy for his friend. So one, now you can connect. Another elegy is in memoriam, author Hallam's, and Shorab and Rustum. This is a famous Persian story in which the story is like the dad didn't know who the son was. The mix-up was happening, and then they killed. So it's a mythology where the long-lost son, sort of in single combat, is killed by his own dad, okay, Rustam. So that's an ironic, sad, tragic tale, and he decided to write it in the narrative way. Okay, so that was all his works: Rugby Chapel, Dover Beach, Scholar Gypsy, Theresis, and then Sheridan Weston. And of course, his most famous critical works, Essays on Criticism, then Culture and Anarchy. These two works you should not forget at all. So, Essays on Criticism and Culture and Anarchy, right? So, Arnold, actually, he was the guy who praised Keats, and he said Keats would have been next to Shakespeare, but he died early. Right? So after some years, he was chosen as a professor of poetry at Oxford. Then he also found the touchstone method. Touchstone method is for classicalism. That is, how do you know some work is great? Right? How will we know? So that we need a standard. So that is the touchstone. So what is touchstone? So works which have been standing for a long time. So they just stand for a long time. Then they are touchstones. So if somebody this poem is to be considered, then if you consider the great authors and check this person's work, if it's kind of matching, then it's like, okay, he's great. But it's not, then no, he's not, right? So that is he found touchstone method. Next is Dante Gabriel Rosetta. So he is not very important, but just know about him. He's a wonderful painter. For most of the works, he had painted a lot. He is a wonderful artist. Okay, and 1848 pre-Raphaelite movement started. So Raphael was like one of the great artists, Italian artists, Da Vinci and all, right? So this was pre-Raphaelite movement in which uh, starts in the time he was the main painter in that group. He was one of the most important things. Okay, then he also worked on Blessed Damsel. This is his work. Okay, Blessed Damsel was his work, and yeah, the Blessed Damsel is about a young woman. Okay, but she goes to heaven, heavenly bliss, but she wants earthly uh, attachment as well. The poem unites the physical and the spiritual, so that is the understanding. This is his only well-known poem, Blessed Damsel. So his sister Christiana Rosetta, she was a sister of. She wrote a fantastic children's work poem called Goblin Market. You just have to remember, and I don't think, but you can know it and keep. Harold Bloom kind of, you know, says that she's that Goblin Market is one of the best for children. Okay, it's one of the best for children and should be considered one of the best. Okay. Then next one is William Morris. William Morris is he's not a great writer, but you just have to remember him for the works like Hollow Land and The Life and Death of Jason. Okay, Hollow Land and Life and Death of Jason. Now, another interesting thing about this is that Eliot got this phrase for his another poem called Hollow Men. Okay, so hollow land was meant like hollow men. Men came from the other novel by Joseph Conrad. Okay, so Eliot used that for his poem. So that is a connection you should know. Then Charles Swinburne, he ran a journal called Undergraduate Papers. Okay, undergraduate papers. So he ran a journal like this. He was a critic and he wrote works on William Shakespeare. Yes, this is the person I was meaning to say. I didn't mean to say Arthur Clarke. Okay, so he wrote works on William Shakespeare, Victor Hugo, Ben Jonson. He was kind of biographer for all these works, right? So Victor Hugo, you might have heard. I have already said he wrote The Miserables, Nostradamus. I mean, the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Such brilliant works he wrote, right? Ben Jonson, of course, he wrote plays. So we have seen all these poets. Remember them. Keep on studying. Keep on connecting with other things. And we have more to go. One more class, I think we'll be able to complete the Victorian Age. So So we saw why we call this the Victorian Age, what influence, what was religion doing this time, what was science doing. This was the time where children literature started flourishing, and we see one of the great writers like Tennyson coming out, poet Tennyson, uh, who was affected by his friend's death, and in memoriam is the press back then. Robert Browning's dramatic lyrics, one of the best works. Elizabeth Barrett Browning's Aurora Lee sonnets from the Portuguese, one of the best works. Matthew Arnold, though we might not consider his poems great, but we still value his criticism a lot. Essays on criticism, cultural anarchy, all this work. And Dante, Gabriel Rossetti, we just read Blessed Damsel, Read Reflect Movement, all those works. They were illustrators as well, just like William Blake was, right? William Blake was an illustrator. So we see his sister, which is famous children's book, Goblet Pocket. Then William Morris, Steinberg, he wrote a lot of biographical work of William Shakespeare, which he wrote in. So next class, we will be talking about major novelists of Victorian Age. We will go a little slow regarding that. Okay, we will go a little slow and we will complete that one. I hope this was useful to you guys. So please do come and listen to it. If you just focus for just 45 minutes, that whole lesson is done. You can do anything because you need to schedule it. Probably I will tell you when to do all these things. I mean, I will explain to you earlier. I will send a note to you to join earlier. So anyway, thank you for taking your time. And many have not showed up except one or two. So please do come and join. It's for you guys, right? Okay, guys. Thank you. I'm going to end the broadcast.